Good morning. How are you? This is Thursday morning, and it's December 2nd, and I am Bo Tiwari. This is Brighter Morning with Bo, and we are beaming to you on MCTV, Multicultural TV in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean region. This morning I was able to get all three newspapers, so I will start with Newsday, and the headline news here: Savannah protesters complain of police brutality. That was a situation in which people gathered at the Savannah to protest. It was a range of issues they were protesting, and they met the UNC operative from La Brea, who did a walk to Port of Spain, and some of them were held by the police, and they complained about police brutality. I don't think police brutality has a place here, and we have to be concerned about things like that, and we have to be concerned about, too, the right of people to protest, but at the same time, we have to be aware that we have to manage things in Trinidad and Tobago, and it can't be a free-for-all. And people like Gary Aboud, who have been activists on many fronts, on many issues for a long time, I don't think they pose any danger to the state. I don't think that they pose any danger to the police. I don't think they pose any danger to the society. They speak their mind, it is true. They criticize the government if they need to. They criticize politicians in general. And I feel people should have the right to speak and the right to protest. And if they are not breaking any laws, they just should not be locked up for being there. So I simply mentioned that. And then Mystery Savior in red, and that is the case of Nigel Jones, the 38-year-old prison officer who was killed, and someone comforted his daughter. And the Express used that as a headline in the newspaper. And don't blame prisoners for murders. We had the police, the commissioner of prisons here yesterday, and the Prison Officers Association talking about the fact that you have criminals in jail who are running criminal gangs outside. And I have no evidence of that, but I'm telling you, I believe it to be true. And anybody who thinks that these criminal elements inside the police, inside the prison, are doing nothing except twiddling their thumbs and not involved in nefarious activities outside have to be jokers. This is a fact that has been going on for years, and it is a known fact. It is a fact of intelligence gathering, and nothing has been done about it. It just perpetuates and continues. All right, we will leave that. So we look at Newsday, then we look at The Guardian. High risk inmates angry. This is an interview that was done by The Guardian, which replicates the interview that we had yesterday. I have a feeling I'm going to play that interview again tomorrow. I don't know. I have to think about it. But I think it was a very, very worthwhile interview. I thought Commissioner Pulchan was very straightforward and forthright. I think he showed the right blend of firmness and assertion of authority that you need in a prison. It's not baby dolls you're dealing with in there. And at the same time, he showed a lot of compassion and desire for reform. He was very clear that you have many good officers. 28 of them have been executed in the line of duty for doing their work. The police have not detected the killers for 24 of these 28. 4 sets of killers who have been charged have not made their way to the courthouse after 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And that is a crime in itself. And so I think I want to play that video again tomorrow. We will see. And the commissioner talks about narco trade gang activity being uprooted. He talked about that here, that they were involved in drugs. Days of partying in cells now done. That is to say, they had their own domains in there, and they did what they want with the complicity of rogue prison officers. And they have this problem of rogue prison officers bringing in contraband stuff. They now have, as he said, drones dropping things inside the prisons. Joint effort to hunt down colleagues, killers. Well, he didn't talk about that yet, so we will see what the police is doing. I want to let you know that I have an article in The Guardian today, as I usually do on Thursdays. It is on page 12, the editorial page. The title of the article is Unprecedented Problem Requires Innovation, and it talks about the problem of Omicron and what it is doing to Trinidad and Tobago and what it is doing to the world, and the fact that we can't use the old methods based on old knowledge to be able to solve this problem. So I hope that you will read it. We have the Trinidad and Tobago COVID cases, and again I want to question something, but I will give the numbers here first. We have 2,177 deaths because of COVID. We have 446,771 people tested. We have active cases, 10,956. We have one-dose vaccinations. Now, this is something I don't understand. We have one-dose vaccinations, 646,047. Now, if you have 646,000 people with one-dose vaccines, it means to say eventually those 646,000 are going to become full-dose vaccinated because they're going to get the second shot. Because if they took Johnson & Johnson, in which one dose is fully vaccinated, they would not be counted here. So either they took Sinopharm, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, and they need the second dose. So that is that number. And then you have fully vaccinated 644,888. Now, those figures look good on the face of it, but they could not be right. Because if you have 644,000 already vaccinated full dose, and therefore in a position to benefit from a booster, and you have 646,000 plus who have one dose, which means that they will be fully vaccinated. What that number says is that within a matter of a month or not more than 2, we are going to have 1.3 million almost people vaccinated in the country. And that could not be possible because there is 50% of the population unvaccinated. Nearly more than 700,000 people in the country are unvaccinated. So something is wrong with the lining up of these numbers here. You could not have 644,000 people with full vaccination and 646,000 with one vaccine waiting to be fully vaccinated, and still have half the population without any vaccinations, another 700,000. Because 6 and 612 and 719, we do not have 1.9 million people here. So something has to be wrong with these numbers. Then in the newspaper we go on, you have a continuing issue with the prison. Community jumpy after failed attack on prison officer and prison chief. No more FETs in cells for high-risk inmates. And then you have the Minister of Health saying that Omicron is not detected in Trinidad and Tobago yet. Let me tell you something. Whether you lock your borders or you don't lock your borders, Omicron is going to come here, whatever country it is, Trinidad and Tobago or any other country. They find one in California now. And they found one in Holland, which had nothing to do with travel or connection with South Africa. Okay, this is a mutation. And it's a well-known fact that mutations occur in the unvaccinated population. It's a breeding ground. So that is a factor. So while you're dealing with all this international ban on travel and so on, and I mean, I understand the thinking behind it, you still have to deal with your unvaccinated population. And many countries like Austria, Germany are taking very strong positions against the unvaccinated, not to deprive them of their rights, but not to allow them to have rights which interfere with the rights of other people who are vaccinated, so that you limit their access to the economy and access to social engagement with the rest of the society. So let us see how this goes. I will stop there with the Guardian, and then Daily Express. U.S. reports first Omicron variant case, and Centers for Disease Control Embassy that should be the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta. Embassy warn Americans about flying to TT, travel caution. And this is curious because they are naming Trinidad and Tobago as a place because of Delta variant infections and the possibility of Omicron and the continuing situation with COVID. They are basically saying that you should not travel to Trinidad and Tobago. I could comment on this, I won't comment yet. And then you have a story, TT testing for Omicron. So, I mean, as long as you have raging infections in your country, as long as you don't seem to have COVID under control. People talking about Omicron, but we haven't gotten the Delta variant under control. It is killing people in Trinidad and Tobago. 19 people died yesterday. So, unless you can get that under control and unless your vaccination rate goes up, people will shy away from your country. That's a fact. Because of two things. When they think of it, it's a high-risk place to go because you can get sick by simply coming into contact with people. And the second thing is that if they believe that you are not getting the matter under control, and think of the things that we are not getting under control. The infections are not coming under control. The ICU is not under control. This Delta variant has been going on in Trinidad and Tobago for God knows how long now, and we don't seem to be getting it under control and so on. Because people are walking around with the Delta variant unperturbed and infecting other people, and they just don't care. And then we cannot make any dent on the vaccination situation. Half of Tobago unvaccinated, half of Trinidad unvaccinated, and people going about their business, and they want all their rights. They want all their rights. They want full citizenship rights. They want the freedom to do everything, to walk about the place and to go wherever they want. And they want the economy open, they want the beaches open, they want everything open. But they will not go and get a vaccine. So, if I am an outsider and I am seeing this disorganized, disruptive, indisciplined country in which everybody wants to do what they want and nobody can bring things under control, and there is no concerted effort to deal with this pandemic in Trinidad and Tobago, you think that I am going to take the risk to come here and bring my family? I mean, really. I think it is hard to justify the CDC picking out Trinidad and Tobago in the way that they did. But having said so, I think you can see why Trinidad and Tobago is a risky place to travel to. And the only people who are responsible are us, Trinidad and Tobago, the citizens here, the government and the authorities, and the nature of the conversation and communication that is leading to this situation of noise, disruption, and little progress, rather than cohesion and progress and improvement in our situation and a certain measure of control. So I will stop at this point. We are going to take a commercial break now, and when I come back, we have Dr. Paulson Skerrit, Director of Pedic, and we will talk about reading, and we will talk about literacy and the interventions that are required and why they are required when we come back.
Welcome to Lifetime Solutions, where you can trust your roof to us. Our services include custom fabrication, steel framing, roofing installation, on-site roll forming, roofing maintenance and services. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today, or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com. Lifetime Solutions. You can trust your roof to us. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today, or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com.
Christmas isn't Christmas without a Passat the Food King Christmas promotion. And this year, we promise it's going to be truly a Christmas spectacle with $500 $1,000 vouchers to be given away. That's right, $500,000 in vouchers to be given away. There'll be winners in every store. With every purchase of $500 at Passat the Food King or $300 at Bright Ideas, a ticket is automatically printed at the end of your bill for you to fill out, enter for a chance to win. Weekly draws will take place every Saturday until December 31st, live on Facebook and on Synergy TV TV beginning Saturday, 6th November. 25 $1,000 vouchers will be given out weekly. Receipts and sales from October 18th to the present are all qualified to enter. That's not all. Apart from the $500,000 Christmas spectacle, there are lots more in store for you to shop, save, and win. And remember, as the season draws closer, look out for even bigger specials and surprises. Facade the Food King brings the spirit of a true Trini Christmas to you at all locations. Manzanilla Road, Mayao, Tabakit Road, Rio Claro, New Grant, 2 stores in Princestown, 2 stores in Point Fortin, and Premier Street, Marabella, next to the Marabella Market.
I am Boxer Potts, and you are?
I am the host of our talk. You refer to me as Mr. Zaid Mohammed.
Join us Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on Hard Talk, Hard Facts, Hard Hitting, not politically soft like my brethren in this side here.
And that is old talk, not hard talk.
Join me, Dr. Shivan Mahabir, on The Present Mind, where we look at common mental illnesses and help you to live a happier, healthier life. We are on MCTV, Tuesdays 1:30 p.m. and Thursdays 1:30 p.m. See you then.
Welcome back. This is Brighter Morning with Bo. I am Bo Tiwari, and you are watching on MCTV, Multicultural TV. And on this morning, December 2nd, we are talking to Dr. Paulson Skerrit, Director of Pedic, and we have him on the line now, so we will bring him to you. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
Let's carry up the volume so people can hear him, please. Thank you for being on the program, and we want to talk about your area of expertise and the work that you are doing. And we want to let people to know why you are doing what you are doing and why what you are doing is important. So let's start a little bit. What is your expertise and what is the problem you are addressing that needs to be solved?
Well, my expertise lies in 2 areas. One has to do with the teaching of reading or literacy. And I've also worked with deaf students. I'm particularly addressing the same issue of deaf students and reading, because reading is a challenge. It's been a crisis in Trinidad and Tobago, as in many other countries. So oftentimes people tend to think our literacy challenges are an indictment on our education system, but literacy issues is not unique to Trinidad and Tobago. In fact, many of us might be familiar with the PEARLS assessment. We've been engaging in PEARLS for several years now, 2006, and the last time 2016. And Trinidad and Tobago, we have not been able to score above the international mean of reading achievement. And that's just the mean of reading achievement. We have not, our mean has not been able to go above that. So that is a challenge. And there are several reasons for that, because reading literacy is a complex linguistic achievement. So it rests on a number of pillars. And unless we address those pillars through assessment, we need to know exactly what students are struggling with, and then providing targeted intervention for them, which means the assessment drives the intervention. Because students are unique social beings. There are different factors that are going to influence their achievement. And so we have to identify exactly what those problems are. And the same thing applies to deaf students. As you know, all over the world, deaf children, for over 100 years, we've been researching how to help deaf students improve their literacy skills. And we're still struggling with that, because English is like with many other languages, it's a song-based language. Deaf children who are born especially profoundly deaf don't hear those sounds. And so being able to map the sounds, oracy precedes literacy. So we hear language, we're immersed richly in language, and then we map that to print. Deaf children don't have that privilege. If I could just talk about PEARLS again. The PEARLS assessment taught us some very valuable lessons. So, for example, we learned when we look at the PERS data for 2016, some big things stood out to us. One, we learned that girls all over the world are better readers than boys. They have a better reading achievement scores than boys. And we're not really closing that gap. It's been there for a long time and it's still there. And Trinidad and Tobago also has that same situation. We also learned that those students who did better in reading are the ones who, for example, had pre-primary positive literacy experiences. And that could have come from, one, their parents reading to them. Two, their parents having a very positive attitude toward reading. And three, the more years of pre-primary school education those children engaged in, there was a consistent relationship between their literacy achievement and that. And then we think of the amount of early resources that students have. Those who have more resources, being exposed to early literacy experiences like text, they have more digital activities going on in the home. They're the ones who do much better. And then a number of other factors. One of the things that I'm concerned with and looking into with my research is the extent to which teacher training prepares our teachers to work with our students. So, you know, we speak a Creole here, a beautiful, rich language that I love. I don't speak it very well, but I love it. And oftentimes, with English, there's not a one-to-one match between the sounds of English and what we read in print. So we have 26 letters of the English alphabet, but there are over 44 sounds. So like the sound A, I'm sure you know there are many ways to spell that sound. You could have E-I-G-H, A-I, A, N-E, so A consonant, E. And there are about 8 different ways to spell that A sound. So oftentimes when students encounter words, there's not a one-to-one relationship. And so they need a kind of explicit instruction. So what have we done? At the School of Education, we recognize, one, that many of the challenges that students have, it's not just one thing. So we started Pedic, Psychoeducational Diagnostic and Intervention Clinic. We found that many of the underserved, many of the marginalized students who were struggling did not have access to quality assessment. So Pedic provides that. A lot of times when you go to private providers of assessment, it's expensive. It's outside of most parents' budget. So we have been providing assessment at a lower cost. It can't be free, but it's at a reasonable cost, and more parents can afford it. And with the assessment, we don't just simply give parents a report that they go away with. We actually try to provide them with an intervention plan, targeted intervention to address the issues, especially in the area of reading, which I would be responsible for. So in Pedic, we started doing that. We provide a range of assessments. All right, assessments would include assessment for autism, for ADHD, for and above, different things that students might be struggling with. But we also include reading assessments and targeted intervention. But I'll pause here.
Yeah, well, you said so many important things, and I want to follow up with some of them. I want to probe some of them. The first distinction that I want to make is that you are dealing with deaf children and creating a favorable environment to help them to read. But you are also finding that there's a problem in the general population, not having to do with deafness at all, in which the reading levels of achievement are not very good. And I want to deal with that one first. And I want you to explain that to the population so that we understand. Why is Trinidad and Tobago ordinary students in the primary and secondary school system, why are they underachieving by world standards in terms of reading ability? Explain that to me.
So, Trinidad and Tobago, our language, our culture Bernstein, for example, talks about this restrictive code that we use. If you compare the kind of engagement with students in perhaps some other Western countries where children with their homes, the kind of conversations, the kind of discourse that they have with their parents, they use that elaborate code. There's a lot of grand conversation, a lot of exposure to vocabulary. And as I mentioned earlier, oracy precedes literacy. So a student's success in reading and writing is very much going to be hinged on what happens in that early environment when they're immersed in that beautiful gift of language. Language that is very elaborate, uses vocabulary that's extensive, so that students, when they come to the task of reading, they can now bring those early literacy experiences, those oral experiences, into the task of being able to read and write. So,
let me just stop you there. So the first positive factor is the home, conversations in the home, and a context in which literacy and reading are valued. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely important.
Okay, go ahead.
Right, so the more rich that language is, then the more students will be able to bring to the task of reading. They can now make those connections back to their previous experiences, previous engagements. I've heard these words before. Now I'm able to make the connection between what I've heard and seen and what I'm reading. But of course, as I mentioned, there has to be explicit instruction for reading, because that code is something called the Alphabetic Principle. And what I mean by that is that students have to understand that there's a relationship between sounds of language and what they see in print. So oftentimes we call that a phoneme-grapheme relationship. The phonemes would be the individual speech sounds. And I know there's a lot of debate as in language and literacy and reading. We have a lot of different ideas about things. And sometimes we become polarized into one view, but that's not a good thing, because of the way language works, we have to understand that when we talk about phonemes, for example, for a long time we've been teaching these individual speech units. But if you take, for example, the sound for ki and the sound for ku, the sound that some birds make, if you try to make that sound for ki and ku, you can't really identify an individual phoneme, because the second sound is very much connected with the first. But the point is, even though that's the case, there is a sound symbol relationship that students need to learn, and that requires explicit instruction from qualified teachers who understand how language works and can help students appreciate that while there are oftentimes there's a consistent relationship, because English has bad parentage. We've inherited English from a number of parents, and instead of trying to adjust, we kept everything we got from those parents, so that we have a language that is very rich, very fascinating, but has a lot of inconsistencies, what we call a deep orthography, where you don't have that consistent relationship between the sounds and the actual letters that represent those sounds. And that requires students being taught that explicitly, and having a lot of text read aloud to them, so they get a lot of exposure to text. So reading aloud, parents who read aloud to their children, they're to be commended, because they are giving their children access to the opportunity to map that speech to print.
All right. So the second issue might well be, in the school situation, teachers being able to recognize reading deficiency or underachievement, and then having the skills, having been trained to intervene to help or to support that student in the school system. Is that correct?
You're absolutely right. I think many parents, when COVID came to appreciate the work that teachers do. And it's a lot of work. So they have a curriculum that they have to deliver. But if we're going to successfully help students with reading, we have to assess them. And many teachers complain, when are we going to get the time to assess them? So that's a big problem. And good teachers who do many things at one time recognize, I have to teach the curriculum, but I need to know what my students know. I need to know what's challenging them. and then provide them with targeted instruction to deal with those specific challenges. So assessment is key. And something I've been emphasizing, good teachers of literacy need to be trained in linguistics. But in many teacher education curriculum teachers, linguistics is not on the program. And especially because of our Creole situation, if we can get teachers to get some training in linguistics, they will understand how language works. And that is going to be very helpful to them in being able to diagnose the specific issues that students are having, including students with dyslexia.
Yeah. You said something about technology that kind of, to me, was provocative, which is that you said that students who were involved with the technology and the communications using the technology, etc., tended to do better in reading. Did I hear you say that, or did I hear you wrong?
No, you're absolutely correct. So
well, explain that to me, because there are some people who argue that involvement with the technology takes the student or takes the young person away from books and reading, and that the communication involving shorthand methods and quick methods of communication, etc., is actually disruptive of the reading engagement as well as the development of capacity to read and comprehend. Go ahead.
Yeah. It's a good point. So that's an example of when people become polarized, and of course they realize that technology it can be a slave and a master. So they focus on the slave is distracting students. So technology could be a bad thing. But the early access to digital devices, to technology, can really support students. It's a motivating factor. Technology allows for a lot of supports to be provided for students. So when a student, for example, who has a short-term memory issue, while we're working on developing his memory issues, if he can, through technology, for example, he can click on a word I don't know, I can get the meaning, I can get information about the word history, I can get information that would help me determine the parts in that word and help me decode it so I could say it and then make a connection. I heard that word before, I know what that word means. Whoa, I can move on. But without that support from technology, I have to depend on somebody to come and tell me, help me decode the word, break it up into parts, make some relationship between the sounds and the symbols I'm seeing there. What does it mean? So technology can do a lot. We have to read aloud. So parents are busy. They have a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressures. But with technology, you have a lot of access to excellent read alouds where you can have text being read to your student. Students can follow the text and they can do that mapping that is so critical to reading. And of course, students love technology. We all know, we've heard the reports about children who are able to control their iPads very, very early. So since that motivates students, access to text through technology is going to be a strong motivating factor. And all the things you can do with technology, where you can bring multimodal properties to students, the different modes of representing text and the affordances that come with that multimodality can motivate students and add so much more to their literacy experiences. And it's good fun.
I'm going to ask you a question now, but I'm going to have to take a break. And the question is this. So we'll talk about it when we come back. The question is that so much of comprehension and engagement of the society depends on being able to read and also to understand, okay? Not only do you have to be able to read the words, but you have to understand the meaning or the intent of meaning of what you read to be able to operate in this society. What is the connection between reading, literacy, and the garnering or the gathering or the taking in of meaning, and how do we ensure that that happens at an early age so that it becomes a foundation for the student to continue to be educated, to learn, to develop, etc. So think about that. When we come back, we talk about it. We break now for some commercials. This is Brighter Morning with Bo. I am Bo Tiwari. We'll be right back in less than a minute.
Welcome to Lifetime Solutions, where you can trust your roof to us. Our services include custom fabrication, steel framing, roofing installation, on-site roll forming, roofing maintenance and services. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today, or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com. Lifetime Solutions. You can trust your roof to us. Call 223-ROOF or 223-7663 for a quote today, or visit our website www.lifetimesolutionstt.com.
Welcome back. This is Brighter Morning with Bo, and I'm Bo Tiwari, your host. And you are watching on MCTV, Multicultural TV, in Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean on several channels. We are talking to Dr. Paulson Skerrit, the director of Pedic. I asked you a question before, which is the link between reading, literacy, and interpretation of meaning, and the value of ensuring that that happens early so that the student can develop. Go ahead.
So I'd like to talk about three things there. One, we go back to the same issue of RSC preceding literacy. So that kind of comprehension and being able to comprehend things at different levels has to happen during the conversations we have with children. So very early, having that kind of elaborate, engaged discourse with children, where we get them to reason and develop those comprehension processing scripts, those cognitive scripts, get them to think, and then they can apply that thinking when they read. So that is key. What happens early with the kind of engagement in discourse with parents and their children, when they come into schools, what happens with teachers and their children, classroom discourse. A lot of research has been looking at the role of classroom discourse and developing students' ability to reason, engage in what we call dialectical reasoning. They could think and apply and have different viewpoints and bring that now to the task of reading. And that's where teachers come in, being able to explicitly, like one of my doctoral students, he has been looking at the role of explicit comprehension instruction. And while the Ministry of Education tells teachers to do that, it's in the curriculum, teachers again are under pressure and oftentimes make assumptions that students maybe don't need that explicit instruction. But that is key. There are a range of strategies before reading, during reading, after reading, that we have to explicitly teach our students to interact with text, engage with text, or what we call transact with the text, so that as they read, they're asking themselves questions about the information. And we see that how relevant that is now with all the people who are into fake news and reading stuff and believing it, and their own thinking and their lives are being placed at risk because of a failure to interrogate, test, and ask questions. Secondly, I think it's important as teachers are teaching across the curriculum, we need to develop these comprehension abilities, the ability to make meaning. I often complain, and people who know me probably think it's a ritual of mine, to talk about that simple sign on the highway called keep left except when overtaking. I see people as I'm driving on the left side of the highway, if I'm not overtaking, passing that sign, they stay on the highway, they clog up with traffic, they're responsible for most of the traffic, and if we do some research, I'm sure maybe a lot of the accidents and loss of life may be traced back to those people who clog up the highway and it eventually cause others to get frustrated. But that sign has a lot of power in it keep left. There's a lot of reasons if we think about that. So sometimes they're seeing that sign. That's not reading. Seeing the words in print, that's not reading. Reading, as you rightly said, Dr. Chawari, has to involve making sense of what we read, and then that has to affect the way we live, the decisions we make. So you're absolutely right. The extent to which, as we teach across the content areas, we get students to think and make sense of the text they're reading, to comprehend at deep levels by evaluating and making judgments about what we read, thinking about who wrote this book, who's the author, what are they trying to get me to think, where are they coming from, who's paying them. Those kinds of questions are going to make a difference in our literacy achievement.
Okay, now I'm going to have to ask you this last question, and you're going to have to wrap up because we're coming to the end of the conversation. And the question is this. Tell me about what Pedic can do in our situation that would be of value to the student or the parent who comes to you for help. And is this a free service, and can this be accessed at the School of Education or where? At the University of the West Indies. Go ahead.
So at Pedic, while we are focusing on all the different challenges affecting students, we realized the crisis with reading required us to focus on a special clinic, a reading clinic, university-based reading clinic, that is going to provide assessment, some informal, some standardized assessment, to really try to identify the challenges students have. And then we provide targeted high dosage tutoring for students, either on an individual basis or in small groups, to try and address their specific needs. So it's a really wraparound service where we can identify your specific reading issues, or we can assess you if we realize there are other things affecting your literacy achievement. And then we provide a plan that we implement both in face-to-face sessions or online to try and address that. So Pedic has now opened a reading clinic. We have reading specialists who are all trained at a minimum with a master's or even doctorate in areas related to reading that provide that kind of assessment and instruction. The clinic is located on, I'm forgetting the name of that street in St. Augustine, by Scotiabank there. But the clinic is there, and then we are also looking to have another building because of the increasing need to provide reading services that will come on stream to address those needs. But listeners can contact Pedic, and they can get an appointment for an assessment, and then we will provide them with the...
What is the number that they can call? Could you put it up on the screen? What is the number that they can call?
Just give me one. Going to be trouble when you... Okay, so the Pedic 662-2002, and the extensions 84517.
Just give me one number,
662-2002.
All right, and the extension?
84517.
All right, 662
2002
and extension
84
517. Okay, if you are interested, thank you very much, Dr. Skerrit. You prompted so many questions in my mind. We could go on for another hour because there's so many things running in my head now. But we have to break for the news, and maybe another time we can continue the discussion. Thank you so much for coming on the program and for the important work that you do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is Brighter Morning with Bo. I am Bo Tiwari, and this is MCTV Multicultural TV. We break now for Andrew Chan and the news.